So Representative Omar blamed the United States for the terrorist attacks on our country, saying that terrorism is a reaction to our involvement in other people's affairs. She smeared U.S. service members involved in Black Hawk Down. In other words, she slandered the brave Americans who were trying to keep peace in Somalia. Omar minimized the September 11th attacks on our homeland, saying, some people did something. I don't think so. Some people did something. Yeah, some people did something, all right. She pleaded for compassion for ISIS recruits attempting to join the terrorist organization. She was looking for compassion. Omar laughed that Americans speak of al-Qaeda in a menacing tone and remarked that you don't say America with this intensity. You say al-Qaeda makes you proud. Al-Qaeda makes you proud. You don't speak that way about America. And at a press conference just this week, when asked whether she supported al-Qaeda, that's our enemy. That's our enemy. They are a very serious problem that we take care of, but they always seem to come along somewhere. She refused to answer. She didn't want to give an answer to that question. Omar blamed the United States for the crisis in Venezuela. I mean, think of that one. And she looks down with contempt on the hard-working Americans, saying that ignorance is pervasive in many parts of this country. And obviously and importantly, Omar has a history of launching vicious anti-Semitic screeds. And she talked about the evil Israel, and it's all about the Benjamins. Not a good thing to say. So that's Omar.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
And a special thanks to Representative Omar of Minnesota. Oh, I forgot. She doesn't like Israel. I forgot. I'm so sorry. Oh. No, she doesn't like Israel, does she? Oh. Please, I apologize.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you bringing this en bloc up today. I fully support this, and it's important for me to point out a few things. As my colleague who just spoke used the frequent use of the words honestly and honest, let's just get to a lot of what's left out. So the BDS movement has not distanced itself from Hamas, a designated foreign terrorist organization. BDS supporters individually are not distancing themselves from Hamas either. It is wrong to be blaming all Israeli and Palestinian violence, quote, as being due to an occupation. Last Friday, Fatih Hamad, a senior Hamas official, called upon Palestinians worldwide to kill all Jews. This is a senior Hamas official just before the weekend. During a closed meeting in October 2017 between Hamas chief Sinwar and Gazan youth about reconciling with the Fatah movement. Sinwar stated that the time spent discussing recognition of Israel is over, and now Hamas will instead discuss when they will wipe Israel out. Hamas uses women and children as human shields. They declare jihad as an obligation. They deny humanitarian aid to their own people. They deny human rights, launching rockets from Gaza into Israel, killing innocent civilians. Tens of thousands of rockets in Lebanon being ready to be launched by Hezbollah. Existential threats to Israel all around it. Our greatest ally in the Middle East. One, that there's been a historic relationship between our two nations, a beacon of hope and freedom and liberty in a region of the world that is filled with challenges. We want to be neutral arbiters. Let's not deny our right and our duty to also be honest brokers. To spend an entire time in justifying opposition to SHREDS 246 based off of everything that's wrong is all due to the Israeli occupation. Why not point out the fact that in 2008, Israel offered to withdraw from 93% of Judea and Samaria in the West Bank? Or what about our students on college campuses right now from coast to coast being targeted with blatant anti-Semitism in the name of BDS? Or taking into consideration the founder of BDS and all of his blatant anti-Semitism? Or the Palestinian authorities pay to slay. They financially reward terrorism. They treat you to a state funeral. They will rename football stadiums after you. We want to use honest and honesty in our remarks. We'll give you a whole lot more honesty. Every year, Hamas mobilizes Palestinians in their days of rage to attack Israelis at their border, calling them to throw rocks and fire missiles at Israel. Often results in actual violence. Hamas uses incendiary kites and balloons, which has destroyed some 8,000 acres of Israeli farms, parks, and forests. And I was pointing out, just last Friday, a senior Hamas official called for the murder of every Jew in the world. And you want to oppose SHREDS 246 under the justification that all the violence is due to an Israeli occupation with no honesty as it relates to any of the violence targeting innocent Americans. By the way, when this committee passed and it became law, the Taylor Force Act, that's not an Israeli citizen. That's a United States military veteran, a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. And the Palestinians pay the terrorist to murder the innocent American and Israeli. We provide tax dollars to the Palestinians, and we demanded more accountability. We could go through the list of the 1,355 people killed by Palestinian violence and terrorism. I would blame the people who are inciting that violence and financially rewarding terror, and I would certainly blame the person who actually is responsible for that. The person who actually stabs, the person who shoots, the person who terrorizes. No, they are not martyrs. They're terrorists. And Israel, as our great ally, should be supported. And this work against BDS, point out the BDS founder, if people aren't familiar with it, quote, "We are witnessing the rapid demise of Zionism and nothing can be done to save it, for Zionism is intent on killing itself. I, for one, support euthanasia." That's just one of the quotes. I encourage all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for what has been fantastic bipartisan support. But don't come to this committee and in this Congress and start blaming Israel for all of the violence that is happening to it, blaming them for an occupation. That I will take the strongest of exception with, and that is not honest. To be accusing Israel of everything that they are suffering from.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Is criticized for good reason. I yield back.
Thank you. Ms. Omar.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your testimonies. Mr. Adams, in 1991, you pleaded guilty to 2 counts of withholding information from Congress regarding your involvement in the Iran-Contra affair, for which you were later pardoned by President George H.W. Bush. I fail to understand why members of this committee or the American people should find any testimony that you give today to be truthful.
If I can respond to that.
It wasn't a question.
On
February, that was not a question. I reserve the right to my time.
It is not right.
That was not a
This
question.
Committee can attack
On February
a witness
8th,
who is not permitted to reply.
that was not a question. Thank you for your participation. On February 8th, 1982, you testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee about U.S. policy in El Salvador. In that hearing, you dismissed as communist propaganda report about the massacre of El Mozote, in which more than 800 civilians, including children as young as 2 years old, were brutally murdered by U.S.-trained troops. During that massacre, some of those troops bragged about raping a 12-year-old girl before they killed them. Girls before they killed them. You later said that the U.S. policy in El Salvador was a fabulous achievement. Yes or no, do you still think so?
From the day that President Duarte was elected in a free election to this day, El Salvador has been a democracy. That's a fabulous achievement.
Yes or no, do you think that massacre was a fabulous achievement that happened under our watch?
That is a ridiculous question, and I will
Yes
not
or no?
No.
I will
Sorry,
take,
Mr.
I will
Chairman,
take
but
that as a yes.
I am not going to respond to that kind of personal attack, which is not a question.
Yes or no, would you support an armed faction within Venezuela that engages in war crimes, crimes against humanity or genocide, if you believe they were serving U.S. interest, as you did in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua?
I am not going to respond to that question. I'm sorry. I don't think this entire line of questioning is meant to be real questions, and so I will not reply.
Whether you, under your watch, a genocide will take place, and you will look the other way because American interests were being upheld, is a fair question, because the American people want to know that anytime we engage a country, that we think about what our actions could be and how we believe our values are being furthered. That is my question. Will you make sure that human rights are not violated and that we uphold international and human rights?
I suppose there is a question in there, and the answer is that the entire thrust of American policy in Venezuela is to support the Venezuelan people's effort to restore democracy to their country. That's our policy.
I don't think anybody disputes that. The question I had for you is that does the interest of the United States include protecting human rights and include protecting people against genocide?
That is always the position of the United States.
Thank you. I yield back my time.
Mr. Watkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions